How's it going, everyone? We are examining some FanDuel Cafe Value here for week 5. If you like what we're doing, give us a like and subscribe, obviously. And obviously, check this out on the site if that's something you like to do. And as I say, if you don't want to look at my face, which is getting very pale as we get towards the fall, go and read Jason's article. How's it going, Jason?
Doing good. I am not going to be so pale as you going
Yeah, no,
forward, but
you're not. You're not. Yeah.
I know your struggle. I know your struggle.
There's just pumpkins and cold, chilling winds and people up here in the Northeast. So, yeah, I got to trudge through that for sure. Let's take a look at some quarterbacks. The top 3 here in Cafe Value is Eli Manning, Brian Hoyer, and Carson Wentz. What are you looking at here? Do you like these prices? Do you like these games, I guess?
I like the prices. I mean, I think, on a week where the focus is going to be on Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger in terms of paying up, it's nice to kind of dive into some guys in a cheaper range. Brian Hoyer is a cash game guy for me. Eli Manning, Carson Wentz are both GPPs, but I do like the upside, really, of all 3 of them. You look at this matchup with Eli Manning. I think game flow is going to set out for a pretty big game from this passing attack. They've allowed the 4th most FanDuel points to opposing QBs this year, also allowing nearly 9 yards per attempt, which is the 2nd highest behind the Jets. So Eli Manning, I mean, 7,700 with Odell Beckham. That's a cheaper stack than Roethlisberger and Brown, than Rodgers and Jordy. So you're getting a little bit of a discount. So I do like that play quite a bit. Hoyer, I love him. 6K. I think our projections underestimate him a little bit. I put him closer to the 16 to 18 projection this week against the Colts team. That should force him to throw a little bit more. Threw for 300 yards, 2 scores last week. I think we can see similar numbers yet again. And as I've been kind of hinting at throughout most of the pods, it's, I want my exposure through basically the wide receivers this week.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's clear stacking options with all 3 of these guys. As far as Carson Wentz, I think you might be trying a little too hard. You know, to be different instead of just going Eli at 77. But I mean, he is a decent value there, especially if you're throwing a Jordan Matthews lineup in there. Maybe you play Odell Beckham instead and hope for the best. So I think that's intriguing. Overall, though, I mean, you can't deny Hoyer at 6K. I just think that's pretty unreal value.
Yeah, with no price bump from last week, I mean, it doesn't make sense.
Just the disrespectful, really, at this stage. Running back here, Melvin Gordon, Jerick McKinnon, and Frank Gore. Good matchups. I'm okay with all of them, I would say. That's how I'd describe it. Yeah, okay. I think there are other options at running back that I might be more attracted to, but certainly value on the table here.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Melvin Gordon, obviously, I think one of the safer options in the 7K range. He's a fine back with me. You look at Oakland, this defense allowing over 5 yards per carry, over 130 yards per game. So, his usage in the red zone, his usage in the passing game has just given him a decent floor and a pretty high ceiling as well when he finds those end zone, rushes. So I like him at that price tag. I think he's playable in all formats. Jerick McKinnon, I like 6,200. I just think this matchup is not as scary as it looks, especially with J.J. Watt being out. I think the price is really solid at 6,200. Probably about the cheapest I'm going to be going this week. And I think overall, you just look how things set up for McKinnon. He's going to get his rushing touches. He's going to work well in the Bradford passing game because they don't really air it out. It is a lot of short dump-off passes, so that gives him a little bit of work there. Frank Gore is probably the only one I'm not on. I just prefer McKinnon over him, and I don't see any use of playing them together. So I just think over 10 times I'm going to be choosing McKinnon every time.
I agree. And again, in terms of floor, he's okay. He's Frankie Gore, but in terms of ceiling, I think we want McKinnon there. And as you mentioned, with the price difference, it just doesn't necessarily make sense. Wide receiver. A very interesting one here. I like Brandon Marshall at 76. I like Jordan Matthews at 7K. Crabtree is going to be a really interesting receiver this week with both ownership. he's just a really interesting, fantasy asset right now in all formats. What's your take on this group here?
I love this group a lot. I mean, one, we're not getting anyone over 8K, so we're actually taking a look at some guys in the mid price range. Brandon Marshall at 7,600 with his potential volume for this week is pretty phenomenal. I think he has a lot of upside, and I think he could match pretty much anyone on the board this week in terms of ceiling for what he can do and how things kind of could script out. Decent matchup against the Steelers as well. Overall, I think Jordan Matthews is in play pretty much in all formats at 7K. I think that's a really nice price for him. Obviously Detroit, it's tough to look at their defense because they have played Aaron Rodgers and Andrew Luck, so it doesn't help. But Carson Wentz has looked good. I think Matthews is an interesting pairing. He's going to be pretty safe. So I think that price tag is going to have me using a lot of him. Crabtree, as you mentioned, I mean, 6,900, he's still not over 7K, even though he's been very solid for Oakland, averaging 9.3 targets per game, and going up against a secondary there that just lost Jason Verrett. So I think an Oakland stack is definitely in order. We look at that total. I think there's a lot of back and forth potential. I think with the running game kind of being what it is, the volume is going to be there for Crabtree. I think he's going to be chalky, one, because you look at recency bias, but also it just sets up pretty well for him.
I threw out a tweet after Sunday's 3-touchdown performance for Michael Crabtree, and I said, hey, Michael Crabtree is finally Michael Crabtree. And I think we've kind of lost a lot of his career. Obviously suffered through those horrible San Francisco teams, and then when they went to Harbaugh, and were good, they were still run first, and they had Kaepernick, who we've now seen as just totally exposed as a bad passer. Crabtree is a really good receiver, and while Amari Cooper is more talented and a more skillful player, Crabtree's touchdowns are a little fluky right now, but for his role, he's going to continue to get targeted in the red zone. They're going to continue to use him on fades. He's going to continue to get a lot of targets in this offense, especially with Clive Walford sort of dinged up, and then the running back situation is a complete mess. So I think he's one of the highest floor guys on the entire slate this week. So I like that call. Let's get to tight end, a much less exciting group, in my opinion. We got Kyle Rudolph, Zach Ertz, and Zach Miller. All right. I like them. They're not nearly as fun to talk about as the group of receivers, that's for sure.
No, it's boring. I mean, we're looking 54, 55, and 5,600. I mean, 1, 2, 3. These are a group of guys that I will be looking at and getting some exposure to all three of them. The Rudolph matchup isn't really terrific as the other two are, but I think with his volume and his usage in the red zone, he did sit out practice, but I haven't seen anything that he wouldn't play. Solid option yet again. I think the price is what makes him more appealing and kind of the consistency shown through the first 4 weeks. But I think Miller and Ertz are kind of the guys I'm looking to get a lot of exposure to, especially if Eddie Royal can't go. I mean, there's really not a lot of production in terms of what Chicago's passing game is going to have to use. I think that forces Miller into a bigger role. Already pretty decent there under Hoyer. And you look at the matchup. I mean, Colts ranked 32nd against tight ends per Football Outsider. So Miller, cash game guy for me. I'm going to be using him a ton. I'm going to be pairing him with Hoyer quite a bit.
Agreed. Yeah, this is kind of like, how study hall in school was. Like, you're excited at study hall, but it's still school. So it's like, yeah, it's cool. I'm cool with these guys, but it's still mediocre.
Yeah, we're not getting outside and playing, but you know what? We're still
No.
messing around. So
It's not gym, but it's like, all right, it's better than like English. That's for sure. In terms of defenses, I think this nails it. Vikings, 48, Eagles 46, and the Pats against Cleveland. I mean, I don't see much reason to shift off of these three.
Nope. I mean, this one pretty much nails it, and especially because we've each, you and I have talked about all three of these teams already in terms of the defensive pod. But Minnesota, it's a team I can't shift off of. I love the price. You look at that cafe value there, 2 points higher than the Eagles, who come in second. Eagles, we talked about as a GPP defense, on the road at Detroit. Still a little hesitation for me deploying him in cash with just a 200 difference from the Vikings, but I think there is a lot of upside with a very inconsistent Matthew Stafford-led offense. The Patriots are probably the most boring defense of the group, but there is potential there going up against Cleveland. It's a shift off of in Minnesota, but I like them, but out of 20 lineups, it's probably just going to be one. I think
Ooh.
I'm not getting a ton of exposure, but I do like him in GPPs.
Worried about Gary Barnage wrecking through that secondary is what you're
Yeah,
saying?
Barnkowski.
Yeah. There you go. I like it. Yeah, no, I pretty much have the same sentiments. I don't mind the Patriots. I just think the Vikings and Eagles are locks, like they're locks to hit value. So I've been going with the Rams and Bills as sort of my variations because I think that game's going to be nuts. But yeah, no, all three of these are certainly fine.
Yeah, the Bills were just a cutoff. They were
Yeah,
fourth, so they
right.
didn't make the list. But yeah, they were up there.
So anyhow, any parting shots at you know the optimal plays or me or anything in general?
I'll take a shot at you. I mean, I think your shirt is. Are you in a bowling league coming up? Is that what's going on tonight? Thursday night bowling?
Oh, whoa, wow. I don't think you realize the double just, you're taking a shot at my shirt and bowling. I am a big bowling guy. It's very important to me. I went candlepin bowling last weekend. It was very annoying.
I would
Have you ever been
imagine.
candlepin bowling? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Cause
hated
like
it.
yeah, you hit it right in the middle and you get two pins down. It's literally miserable.
Yeah,
And it's hilarious because the lane, like nobody goes candlepin bowling anymore. All the records are like from the 80s when like candlepin bowling was cool.
makes sense.
So like there were dudes like in their tight, pants in the 80s like going down to the candlepin, every Friday, spending all weekend
Yeah, that's
there.
that's when
But
like Miller High Life was big.
like everyone smoked. It was just
Yeah.
smoke everywhere. Yeah. So that was that. Anyhow, good luck this week, and we'll talk to you guys in week 6.